Welcome to the Goodyear Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We're excited to have you be a part of this important public process. Tonight, you will have the opportunity to address the commission on both non-agenda and agenda items. The agendas and speaker request cards are located in the back of the council chambers. You must fill out a speaker request card in order to address the commission. Please hand in your completed card to a city staff member. You may check the "I do not wish to speak" option on the card. This allows you to still voice your opinion on an item on the record without having to speak. In accordance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, please contact a staff member if you need any assistance. Public comment on a non-agenda item will take place during the citizen comment portion of the evening. These are items that don't appear on tonight's formal agenda. The Commission Secretary will call your name when it's time for you to speak. At that time, please approach the podium and tell us your name for the record. You'll have a maximum of 3 minutes. The timer is on the screens visible from the podium. Note that you may also choose not to speak if other speakers before you have said what you wanted to say. Shouting, cheering, and loud noises will not be tolerated, and violators may be removed for disrupting the meeting. Goodyear Planning and Zoning Commission meetings stream live on YouTube and online at goodyearaz.gov. Follow the city's social media pages so you don't miss out on all that's happening in Goodyear. Thank you for coming to this meeting and being an active part of your city. And remember, it's a great time to be in Goodyear.
Good evening. The June 14th meeting of the Goodyear City Planning and Zoning Commission has been called to order. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Secretary, will you note the roll?
Commissioner Wang is present. Commissioner Sambito is present. Commissioner Booth is present. Commissioner Hegedus is present. Vice Chairman Clymer is present. Chairman Kish is absent. We have a quorum.
All right, I'd like to have a motion and a second to excuse the chairman from the duties this evening, wherever he is. Okay, Commissioner Hegedus and Commissioner Wang, all in favor?
Motion passes.
All right, I'd like to have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the last meeting on May the 10th. Okay, moved and seconded.
Motion passes.
Now's the time for any citizens who would like to address the commission for a non-agenda item, anything not on the agenda. Are there any speaker cards?
I have not received any.
Would anyone like to speak on a non-agenda item? Okay, seeing that. Now we'd like to take the opportunity for anyone on the commission who's had any ex parte communication relative to anything on the agenda this evening. Has anyone had any such? No. Okay. All right, we're going to open the public hearing. And agenda item number 2 is a use permit for mini storage. And this evening, we're going to be addressed by Ms. Cortez. There we go. Good evening.
Good evening, Vice Chairman, Commission members. Guadalupe Ortiz Cortez, planner. The request before you is for a use permit for a mini storage facility. The subject property is located at the southwest corner of West Willis Road and West Mountain Vista Drive in Estrella. The property is shown on the screen by the orange outline. The property is zoned PAD, Planned Area Development. The PAD is known as Montecito PAD. The property falls under the Business Park and Business Park 1 zones within the PAD. The 2005 general plan designates the property with a neighborhood land use designation. The neighborhood land use designation allows for a wide range of densities and housing products, as well as commercial uses at appropriate intensities and locations. The subject property is highlighted in this screenshot of the general plan as outlined by this red shape. The site is approximately 9.12 acres. The site is approximately 300 feet from the property line to the nearest residential property line to the northwest at the Segovia community, and approximately 200 feet from the property line to the nearest future residential home at the southeast community, Cantamia. And this is shown in the screen by the yellow arrows. As I mentioned previously, the property has a Business Park and Business Park 1 zoning under the PAD. The PAD calls out the permitted uses for these zones, which are limited by the noise and odor easement areas from the city's Rainbow Valley Water Reclamation Facility. The uses permitted for the Business Park and Business Park 1 include warehousing, manufacturing, equipment rental, plant nurseries, and parking lots, among other uses. Parks, offices, retails, and similar uses are not permitted within the Business Park zone because the zone is within 300 feet of the noise and odor easement of the water reclamation facility. Mini storage facilities are permitted in both zones with a use permit approval. The presentation slide on the screen shows the site plan for the storage facility. The applicant proposes a 98,000 square foot main storage building and two smaller buildings totaling 36,000 square foot. The proposed project includes 925 total units, 731 climate-controlled units, and 194 non-climate-controlled units. The applicant is provided the required vehicle parking and landscaping, which include landscaping along Willis frontage, along the perimeter of the buildings, and on the rear of the buildings where the retention basin is proposed. The site plan also shows the location of the water reclamation facility noise and odor easement setback lines. This line shown on the screen is the 1,000 feet noise and odor setback line from the water reclamation facility. And this one on the left of the screen is the 300 feet noise and odor easement setback line. The proposed elevations incorporate a variety of materials, including stone, stucco, CMU, and metal as an accent. The elevations also include desert colors and angled roofs to blend in with the residential neighborhoods in the area. The applicant provided the renderings shown on the screen. The application for the use permit meets the use permit evaluation criteria established in the zoning ordinance as detailed in the staff report. Staff believes the mini storage facility is compatible with the uses permitted in the surrounding area, considering the permitted uses in the PAD zones and any limitations on the property based on the water reclamation facility in the vicinity. Storage facilities are typically less intensive, low-impact uses compared to the other uses permitted on the property, such as warehousing, manufacturing, and equipment rental, among others. The nearest residential home to the northwest is approximately 370 feet from the subject property. That's property line to property line. This distance includes an open space tract included in the Segovia Final Plat and Montecito PAD. There is also an approximately 170 feet to 420 feet additional separation between the proposed storage buildings within the subject property, and it varies because of the property, the rear property line of the subject property. That is what is rear of the storage facility or storage buildings. Before getting to the property line, there's approximately 170 feet to 420 feet, varies based on that property line, for a total of 510 feet to 790 feet. And that is to the neighborhood northwest of the subject property. And there is approximately 200 feet from the subject there is a distance separation of approximately 20 feet from the subject property to the nearest residential property line to the southeast to the Cantamia future residential lots. And within this 200 feet is Willis Road, a modified scenic arterial that at full build-out, if needed, will include 3 travel lanes on each direction and a bicycle lane on each direction as well. The applicant proposes to be open 7 days a week with office hours from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and facility hours from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. Staff does not propose limitations to the hours of operation due to the location of the property within the business park zone of the PAD, the open space and road separations between the property and the residential neighborhoods. The property is within the lighting zone 2 of the city of Goodyear. Thus, the project is required to provide full cutoff lighting. And in addition, in order to mitigate light concerns that the staff has heard from residents, staff is recommending a stipulation that require lighting to be dimmed to 50% between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. Its traffic study was reviewed and approved with the use permit application. The traffic study found that the expected traffic from the proposed development of the mini storage facility is less than initially anticipated for the business park uses in the area. The citizen review and public hearing processes were followed. A neighborhood meeting was held on May 17th. Approximately 31 residents attended the meeting. Residents expressed concerns with the design and height of the building, with noise, with lighting from the building and signage, as well as concerns that businesses could be run out of the units and that hazardous materials could be stored on the site, causing potential fires. In order to address resident concerns, staff is recommending stipulations that include prohibiting hazardous materials from being stored on the property, a stipulation that prohibits the businesses can be run out of the units, a stipulation that requires the dimming of lighting to 50% from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m., a stipulation prohibiting RV storage or outdoor storage on the property, among other stipulations. In addition, based on feedback received during the neighborhood meeting, the applicant completed a noise study for the proposed mini storage facility at this property. The applicant will be presenting on this noise study to you after my presentation. I'll just mention that that the study concluded that the noise decibel levels at the nearest residential property on the southeast would be 44.4 decibel levels and 40.8 decibels or less for the nearest residential property to the northwest of the subject property. At the time of that the staff report, at the time that the staff report was finalized, staff had received 4 resident emails opposing the project and 2 resident emails supporting the project. After finalization of the staff report, staff received 1 additional email. A resident expressed they are pro-development, however, believe that the facility will hurt development in Estrella and is concerned with the amount of land developed or the amount of land needed for the storage facility. The resident also expressed that the residents in Estrella believe that this property is to be a commercial district. The use permit request before you meets the city requirements. Staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission forwards a recommendation of approval to the City Council, subject to the stipulations found in the staff report. Mr. Vice Chairman, Commission members, this concludes my presentation. The applicant and owner are in attendance today, and they have a presentation for you as well. I believe they would like to share some of the noise study results as well as an elevation section of the properties.
Thank you, Guadalupe. Are there any questions for staff? Okay, the applicant would like to make a presentation.
Good evening, Vice Chair and Commission members. I'm Michelle Bach with EAPC, 901 East Madison Street, Phoenix. So thank you for having us tonight to present our project to you. This is for the Willis Road Self-Storage Project, as Guadalupe has introduced. I'm going to run through a few of these slides that are repeat from Guadalupe's presentation, but for context, we are on the northwest corner of Willis Road and Rainbow Valley Road, mainly fronting Willis Road. The property is a combination of 2 parcels that will be replatted into 3 parcels, and we will be taking the middle section, roughly 9 acres, to propose the self-storage facility before you. It comprises of 1 large 98,000 square foot climate-controlled facility in the middle with 2 exterior single-story roll-up buildings in the rear and framing the perimeter of the site. Then we do have driveway access points, 1 on the north end and 1 on the south end, with full half-street improvements being planned into Willis Road. That includes the double lane, the bike lane, the sidewalk, and landscaping improvements on Willis Road. And both decel lanes for both entering points. The property in the rear is gated. There are 2 gates, one on the north west corner of the building and then one on the southeast corner of the building. And then the perimeter building will act as the screen wall for the rest of the property. These are the elevations that Guadalupe has already presented. The east elevation facing Willis Road that does have our main office entrance as well as a secondary loading lobby entrance in the middle. And then the west elevation, which is internal to the facility, so all of the roll-up doors presented on the screen are internal to the facility and fully screened. There is a secondary loading lobby in the rear of the property there. On the north elevation, that is facing the residential Estrella Mountain Village. There is another large 9-acre parcel that is separating that as well. And then the south elevation also internal to the property, as we have a driveway and then the roll-up building to the south of that still that will be screening the interior roll-up doors. These are some images, some 3D images of this. The one on the left being the main entry drive into the office, and then the one on the right, that southern entrance with the rolling gate. And both of the rolling gates will be screened also to, again, minimize visibility of any of the roll-up doors in the rear. The one on the left here is that second loading space on the front. And then again, just another side view on the right of the corner office. I wanted to touch on the setbacks. This was one of the comments and concerns that came out, both the distance of our facility to the adjacent residential community, as well as the noise study, as two major concerns from our neighborhood meeting. So we do have a parcel that is separating our proposed project and the residential development. This is the Rainbow Valley Utility District parcel. There is, from the setback to setback, we have a couple dimensions on here, but setback to setback for the residential property to our new property line ranges anywhere from that 390-foot range up to the, again, 600, because actually on the north end here, we tried to take it from the screen wall of the adjacent residence, because there is a significant drainage buffer within the Estrella Mountain resident neighborhood that sets them back even further from that Rainbow Valley Utility parcel. And then again, from that screen wall of the adjacent residence to our actual building planned layout on the property. So the closest one being the perimeter roll-up buildings, being on further on the southwest corner at that 780-foot mark, and then again at 750, roughly in the middle, but then the single-story climate-controlled building being in the 800-foot range from those resident neighborhoods. And then this is a simple graphic of that as well from the potential, from the screen wall, which is roughly 8 feet from that residence. The Rainbow Valley Utility campus parcel, which on one end ranges from roughly 600 feet to the opposite end being close to 400 feet, making up that parcel, and then our property line hitting and then to our nearest building. So the one, the graphic on the top, that cross section is over that 800-foot mark before it hits our climate-controlled building, and then the one on the bottom here hitting the single-story roll-up building. And I'd like to make note that the heights of these buildings, too, being single-story, the roll-up buildings are at about 12 feet for height, and the climate-controlled building with the parapet and tower changes are around that 17 to 20-foot height, the higher sides being closer to Willis Road. These are the elevations for the roll-up buildings facing the north and northwest corners. And then the opposite side here, this is building C, that's facing those internal driveways. And then again, just some 3D views, and this top image is the second gate, which is significantly back in our property off of Willis Road, since this gate starts after the climate control building. Some materials that we have on the property are a mix of stucco, some stacked stone, integral color stone on the climate-controlled building, two different metals, and then some metal standing seam roof on the back buildings as well. The noise impact study that was requested, again, just reiterates the hours Guadalupe had mentioned, with our gate hours to the property being open from 5 to 10. This is hours for tenants only. And then our office hours being 8 to 6, 7 days a week. The city of Goodyear does not have a specific decibel level requirement for our zone. So the code ordinance does describe this, that spilling needs to be factored into the design. So that means that anything to be developed, such as using screen walls, using landscaping, using the buildings as buffers to help mitigate any sort of noise spilling off of our property into adjacent properties.
You have 2 minutes remaining.
The potential noise that was analyzed is all the items up on the screen for you, between roll-up doors, gates, sliding gates, cars starting, people talking, the trash enclosure being picked up once a week, and then also the AC units on top of the roof. We are proposing roughly 26 units on the roof. Our noise impact analyst did use our standard 5-ton unit at the max level design that that unit would ever output in his study. Through that impact, he came up with that 44.9, less than 45 decibel levels of leaving our property, which is well within the city ordinance. That number also did not factor in the use of our screen walls, the neighborhood screen walls, our landscaping into that number. So this number is a very conservative number, anticipating no other mitigation efforts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant?
Yes, I got a few. What safeguards do you have against hazardous materials being stored in there?
So hazardous materials are not allowed. It is a stipulation in our staff report, but it's also not allowed per individual's lease agreements. So if anybody is ever found violated, they're immediately evicted.
Let's see. So the hours of operation, people that are renting these can't get in before 5 a.m. or after 10,
That is correct.
even if they're like a business owner?
Correct. Usually that's why we have it at 5 a.m. It's usually early enough for anybody who is potentially using their storage unit for file storage or material storage that they have time to get there before.
What are the range of sizes of these units?
They range anywhere from 5 by 5 up to a 10 by 25 unit.
Do you expect these units to be occupied like fully relatively soon after construction?
Usually our feasibility study plans for 3 to 5 years for the facility to be full, and for storage, full is at a 90% capacity.
Are any of the units alarmed?
No, the units are not individually alarmed. There is a security system around the whole property, cameras inside and out, and then each of the access points are secure, each of the sliding doors and the gates.
So residents wouldn't have to worry about alarms going off if a unit is opened and they didn't turn it off or something?
No.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Was there any additional landscaping addressed along that property line? I briefly noticed the landscape exhibit. Was there additional trees along the north edge there, anything to help screen?
So this actually is a comment back from our HOA. We did do an additional HOA review with the Australian Mountain HOA. One of the comments that came back, and I believe we had this comment also in our site plan review that's been running concurrently, was to increase some of the landscaping back in our retention basin, which is north of this tree line that is north of here. I think you can see it actually in this section here. That kind of oval piece behind the last driveway to the north is our retention basin. So we have been requested to landscape back there as well.
Is it your intention to do that?
Yeah, we will comply with that. So,
And was that the landscaping trees along the frontage, are those additional or are those just standard required? Do you know?
Along Willis Road is meeting the city standards. I will say that the line of trees that are on the left side of the roll-up building, that was all requested by the HOA as well. So we did add that row of trees in. for the
And then
HOA.
in looking at the sound, the examples of things that would produce sound all seem like standard uses around a home. Am I to understand that the 45, the largest decibel, is probably coming from those air-conditioned units? And that would be a number that's prior to any screening potentially affecting it?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any speaker cards?
Yes. Neil Wilson.
Good evening, Commissioners.
And just a reminder, sorry, before you begin, just to let you know you have 3 minutes.
Okay, great, thank you. So one of the stipulations, and Commissioner Hegedus, you brought it up, that it was your first question. What about flammable materials, right, being stored? How are we going to be guaranteed that there aren't going to be any explosives, flammable materials, acetylene tanks, gasoline, diesel fuel, all those flammable materials that could combust and explode and create a very hot fire, right? One thing that the presenter didn't point out is that the fire station is right near it, right? So with that heat, there's a potential that the fire station, that the structure could actually melt as well and endanger our firefighters, right? There was a fire, I don't know if you're aware of it, but there was a fire in Mesa in December that burned a storage facility down to the ground. Now the ATF is investigating. Why would the ATF be investigating this? Because there's probably ammunition that was stored in there, or maybe it was a meth lab that was there. But this facility, keep in mind, this facility is not the middle of nowhere. It's in my backyard. It's in other people's backyards as well. Okay? It's right next to the firehouse. It's right next to a retirement community. Okay? What happens if this burns to the ground? It's going to set off a plume of smoke. That could be a toxic plume of smoke that's going to go throughout Estrella, that could cause an evacuation, okay? I am totally against this. I think it's a very dangerous thing to have right now in backyards. If they want to put this somewhere, put it somewhere where it's out of the neighborhood, well out of the neighborhood, okay? People will still go to it. This isn't a matter of convenience. I mean, well, it is a matter of convenience for some people in my community, but it's a dangerous matter of convenience for people that live around it. Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Shepard.
Hello, my name is David Shepard. I'm a resident of Goodyear full-time. I'm also a business owner here as well. We moved from pretty close to Walmart to go up the hill into Estrella because of how peaceful it is, because how nice it is. It's such a beautiful, clean community. It's quiet at night. We can see the stars. And to bring in this storage unit and put it in the middle of a residential complex, it's so out of place. It does not belong there. You asked a key question. I believe you're actually a fireman. I was. Yeah. I did 20 years in law enforcement. I'm retired now. I can't even begin to speak at how many search warrants we have served on storage units for people storing goods there for commercial burglary theft, vehicle prowls, residential home theft. It brings in a ton of criminals. It brings in a lot of those people. Now those people are going to be coming all the way up into Estrella, driving their stolen cars and everything else and dropping off the goods. There is no guarantee that there will not be any hazardous chemicals. When someone comes and checks in, they'll ask them, oh, please don't put any here. Okay, great. That still doesn't mean people aren't going to bring their cans of paint that go to their house, because we all have like 6 or 7 different colors in the house, and the acetylene tanks and the gas cans and the diesel cans and everything else. Fires there will be a very real possibility. They have water sprinklers. They have nothing else. It's not going to put out these chemicals that are going to be in there. Just because you ask somebody the day they move in and the day they give you money doesn't mean they're not going to do it. A concern of mine is how they want to take the center piece of land, and they're not talking about the piece on the north and the piece on the south, the left and the right of it. What's going to go there? What's the future development? You know, they talk about the paint colors and having a wall and things like that. That's not the big picture. That's minutia. The big picture is what else is going there. And by having a storage unit there, you're not going to allow other good businesses that benefit the entire community to be there. We need actual businesses up there. We need grocery stores. We need places to go out to eat with our family. We need little shops and everything like that. A storage facility chases people and other businesses away. Again, I own a business here in Goodyear, and this is a horrible idea. And I'm really asking that you do not allow this to go forward anymore. You don't allow that skinny piece of parcel in between the homes and this business to exist, because who's going to take that parcel? What business are they going to try and force into that little area right there? There's just so many concerns, and I know it benefits them. It's easy to build one of these structures. No sewer, no water, other than maybe their one bathroom for the employee only. You know, they don't need all the electrical concerns. They can build it really fast, really cheap, and make a ton of money off of it. But that doesn't benefit us, the ones that live up there. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
I have Shelley and Tom Blackman.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Shelley Blackman, and I'm a Goodyear resident, and I'm also a resident of the Cantamia subdivision that is going to be, or actually is, directly south of where this storage facility will be. I'm very disappointed, quite honestly. I moved to Goodyear from Chandler. I lived in Chandler for almost 40 years. And I moved to Goodyear, and I was so happy with the way the city of Goodyear has run things. But this situation with this particular facility and the process so far has really left me disappointed, especially from a transparency standpoint. And I think the city has tried to be very transparent in things that they've done in the past that my husband and I have been involved in. The first thing I'd like to mention is that when the zoning sign went up for this facility, it was placed right next to the fire station. There are no homes anywhere close to the fire station. That part of Willis is under construction. So instead of it being placed on Mountain Vista, where residents are going into Montecito and into Cantamia, I believe it was deliberately placed so that very few people would know that this meeting tonight and the meeting that is going to happen at the City Council would know about it. The Montecito residents did receive a postcard making them aware of this change that was coming about or being requested. Cantamia residents did not. We have about 1,300 residents, and there'll be a significant number of them currently whose backyards back up to Willis, and lots that will be sold whose backyards will back across Willis from this particular facility. Cantamia was not notified at all. Fortunately, we do have a few people here tonight from Cantamia through word of mouth more than anything else. The next thing I would like to talk about is the meeting that was held in May. And Guadalupe was not present for that meeting. And we were not made aware until about 3/4 of the way through that meeting that there was a Goodyear staff member there, but taking notes only. And that was only after one of the residents asked. We were told that, and it was accurate, that that the architect was requesting, the developer was requesting a use permit. We don't understand that type of vernacular. We're not planning and zoning people. We didn't realize it was a change in the zoning, or a lot more people would probably be here tonight. So again, that goes to the issue of transparency. The bottom line is, my house doesn't back directly up to this property, but my community will be impacted by it, and certainly the Montecito community will be impacted. I agree with the gentlemen who have spoken before. This is not the best use for this property. It may potentially meet the business park requirements, but it is not the best use for it. I worry about the hazardous materials. I worry about the traffic. Is this the best that we can do in Estrella? And I just request that you decline this change in the use permit. Thank you.
Mike Durda.
Mike Durda, Goodyear resident, full-time, live in Cantamia also. So representing the other side of the argument, I think the building looks great. In all the studies that I have looked up online, people go to a storage facility roughly 2 times a month. 50% of them, I'm sorry, go to a storage facility to look at their things 2 times a month. The rest of them just leave things there. So it's not going to impact traffic coming up and down the streets as commuter traffic would. So that's great. The building looks good. It's needed. Most of the people I know in Cantamia have a storage facility someplace. This will cut down on all that traffic. 45 decibels of sound is so low. The average sound of the best Carrier units and Lennox units installed as air conditioners throughout my community is 72 decibels. They don't even know that. So, and the sound in here is about 54 decibels. It's already louder than the quiet hum that's going to come across from that rooftop unit. And a 3-lane on each side road is going to be far louder than anything. Noise, not an issue. Anything else that could go in there could be far more destructive, I think, to a community than this, which seems like a very passive and needed and beautiful addition. I think of all of the community assets that could go in that are noisy and add to the traffic. I think this is just going to be a far better solution, and I think it looks great. When people think of mass storage, they think of all those lined up orange garages forever and ever and ever, and this isn't that. This just blends in, I think, nicely. I hope you vote for it. Thank you.
Jeff Redmond.
Good evening, and thank you for your time and your service to the community. I'm a resident of Estrella Mountain, Segovia 2, which is the development directly behind the proposed project. There's 35 homes, my home being one of them. View fencing. We paid dearly for that fencing. I strongly oppose this project and ask that the council to reject this storage unit being built in our beautiful community. My rationale for opposing this project is based on lifestyle preservation. I've never, I went to that previous meeting and was thinking about all the different things that went along with this project, and the 3 things that came to mind, or I was able to fit these into 3 different buckets: view pollution, noise pollution, and light pollution. In the current state, most of the residents of Segovia and Cantamia have a 180-degree view of the mountains and surrounding foothills during the day. Again, those 35 homes that I speak of, and me being one of them, there's about $1 million worth of premiums that we paid for those view lots. $1 million. The project brings tall buildings, tall walls, tall storefronts, and tall light posts. Noise pollution. Right now there's net 0 noise on that property. Nighttime is extremely quiet. The project will bring noise in the way of AC units. I believe there's 26 of them, I think I heard. Generators, gates opening and closing, sliding doors slamming, trucks, cars, and of course the patrons. I encourage you all, if you haven't, to go to one of these facilities and just see how noisy they really are as you make your decision. And it was mentioned that traffic on Willis Road would not increase. I don't know how that statement can be made. Anything you bring there is going to bring more people, which increases traffic. It's just the way it's going to be. Light pollution. This is a big deal. It's dark at night there. Stargazing is an amazing attribute that we paid for in that community. That's the reason I moved out there, or one of the main reasons. The project brings excessive light pollution and will destroy the dark environment that we all cherish to observe the sky during the night. In summary, the expectation of the community, or for most of us that live directly next to this, is that all these lifestyle attributes that I've covered be preserved, no matter what's built there. Our stunning view, our quiet environment, and our dark night stargazing should not be disrupted. it should be preserved at all cost. And it should be a huge factor. All these things I talked about should be a huge factor in deciding whether or not to build this facility. With that, I thank you.
Steve Johnston.
Good evening, Vice Chair, council members. My name is Steve Johnston. I am a resident in Segovia 2 that has property that is immediately adjacent to the proposed development. And I too am opposed to the facility as proposed. I wanted to point out that it's not a coincidence that the noise study showed a noise level of 45 decibels. The Code of Federal Regulations standard cutoff is for 45 decibels. And that's for continued operation during the hours of 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And I'd like the council members to be sensitive of one thing. If a permit is issued, a use permit is issued, I would like the permit language to stipulate that the permittee is required to adhere to those guidelines, and if it can be shown that those guidelines are exceeded, that the permittee would be required to take and implement corrective measures to bring their noise spillage within the federal guidelines, or be at risk of losing their operational permit. So I would strongly urge the commissioners and the council members to give that strong consideration, because the noise aspect that some of the other speakers have mentioned is a very precious thing for the residents in these neighborhoods. It's deathly quiet at night out there, and that's one of the main considerations why many of us chose to pay a premium and live and move to this part, these subdivisions. And any kind of noise pollution, such as the operation of 26 5-ton commercial HVAC units, is going to impact. I don't care how quiet they are. You're going to hear this at night. You can almost hear people speaking at night. It's that quiet. So I would just like the commissioners to be considerate of the fact that, you know, we do take that very seriously, and that we would want, if a permit is issued, I would want that the permit language to stipulate that the permittee has to take measures to ensure that those guidelines are not exceeded. That's what I wanted to say. So thank you.
Ryan Gustafson.
As you're coming up, I just want to make something clear that unless it's something new that you're going to talk about, if it's something we're going to hear 3 or 4 times over, it's already been said, come on up and state your case. But just remember not to try to talk about the same thing each and every speaker.
Yes, sir. And I'll try to make it brief then, sir. But, I mean, you heard from the law enforcement side, you've heard from the fire side. I mean, there's real concern. It's an increase in crime. It can definitely happen within storage units, which we've already heard. There's increase in fire. That Willis Road is also a major intersection for it if somebody does have to evacuate that center. So having a fire there, you only have then one exit to move out of Estrella Parkway in need of a fire. I just want to say that as well too, and I'll leave it at that. A lot of that stuff that I want to talk about has already been said, but I just wanted to point that out. I have a family as well too. I have, 4 children at home, and it is a real concern having potentially increased crime, potentially a fire, and them having hazardous materials inside the facility itself, and just working off the honor system to make sure that they're not included in there. Thank you.
Jason Powell.
Some of you have already heard it before, but just want to bring up a few notes here. They told us in the meeting in May that the highest point would be 26 feet. Now today they're saying 17 feet. So we don't know what we don't know what it is. I also live in Segovia too. Paid a premium for the lot. It's wrought iron fence back there for a view. They also said that they took a 5-mile radius vote to see if people would want this in the area. Well, they didn't ask me, and I live right behind it. And I don't know, I've talked to a lot of the neighbors, and they haven't asked them either. So I don't know who they asked for this. Two is I'm a commercial air conditioning, 25-year veteran. Been doing it long time. And I know about package units. The 5-ton carrier package unit is 84 decibels, and they're going to have 22 on the roof. 26, sorry. And that's if the units are in good working order mechanically. Anything mechanically goes wrong, it raises the decibel level, of course. I guess concern for hazardous materials, we've already talked about that, just due to its location of Rainbow Valley. Not to be disrespectful to Rainbow Valley, but we all kind of know what's in that area. Also, I want to bring up that they don't even know who's going to own it yet. It's just probably U-Haul, probably another business. So we see it like this: well, U-Haul owns it. Well, then they start moving in their trucks, and they start renting out the U-Haul trucks. And now not only do we have a 26-foot high building in our backyards, but now we have U-Haul trucks parked all around. So that's all I have. Thank you, guys.
The last speaker card I received was for Pat Krippner in support of the staff recommendation, but it states that they do not wish to speak. Is that still true? Just checking. Okay. That's my last speaker card.
Okay. Does anyone else wish to speak? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. I'd like to have a motion and a second.
Could I ask a couple more questions?
Well, we're going to discuss once we get a motion and a second. Yes? I just closed the public hearing, but, yeah, and you've already spoken.
I'm sorry. I was doing something else. What was that?
I'm just waiting to see if there'll be a second. If there's not a second. Well, unless you have a second, you won't get a chance to vote it down.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, now we have a motion and a second. Now, are there any discussion among the commissioners? Questions?
Guadalupe, could I ask a couple questions of you, please? So something commercial will eventually go in there. What else possibly could go in there if this storage facility is not approved?
Thank you, Commissioner Hedges. Vice Chair, Commissioners. The Business Park and Business Park 1 zones of the PAD allow warehouses, detention facilities, plant nurseries, parking lots, vocational schools, processing and compounding of previous material, or companies that do processing and compounding of previous materials, whole housing activities, equipment rental. The business park zone does not permit any commercial offices, no schools, food banks, or commercial shopping centers.
So no restaurants or stores?
That is correct.
Thank you.
For the business park zone, within the 350 feet of the 300 feet.
Of the treatment plant?
Of the treatment plant, yes, within the, this area. In this 300 feet of the water reclamation facility and the Business Park 1 zoning, so in the darker purple.
So since that's outside that, would they be able to have something like that in there?
In the lighter purple that is zoned Business Park, they are allowed bus, RV storage, sign and painting shops, automobile service stations, temporary construction offices, a daycare with multi-use of buildings, retail showrooms.
What would that entail? What's a retail showroom?
It does not have a definition here for retail showrooms. Let's see.
Like a carpet store or something?
Or somebody manufactures doors or something like that?
Yes, perhaps the equipment rentals, public utility offices, plant nurseries as well, but it does not.
So not convenience uses, typically?
Not typically.
What are potential heights for any of those? Would it be higher than the 20 feet, 26 feet, whatever it's going to be?
I believe the height there, I don't
The current
have that
height, I think,
information
was
here.
17.
So the building height is 17 to the roof line, and then there's a parapet walls, and then the highest point of the roof at 26 feet.
But if another business went in and didn't have to be rezoned, do you know what the height requirement would be or the height maximum?
Unfortunately, I don't have that information on my hand, but we, just to clarify, the zoning for the property will remain Business Park and Business Park 1. The application is not to rezone the property, but to approve a use permit for the mini storage. A mini storage is permitted in the Business Park and Business Park 1 zones with a use permit approval. And that is this process that we're,
So say building height, if someone wanted to put a business office there, could they do 2 stories?
I believe so. I unfortunately don't have the actual height.
So 2 stories would exceed the 26 feet, because you'd have your
That
two
is correct.
10-foot stories plus your parapet wall.
Yes,
So they could
perhaps
go over
larger than
30.
30 feet.
And then we'd be back to where we recommended against the 3-story buildings in Montecito itself. So, gives you an idea, I think. They could do a couple stories of a business, like an office.
A lot of those businesses that you said, the opportunity for more noise, I think, potentially
traffic.
could be there and more traffic. I see the positives and negatives. My house up in Estrella backs up to a wash, and I got a maintenance yard that's not far. So I do hear early morning noise and the backup beepers and stuff. But I knew that when I bought my house. It's just something that I need to live with, and I understand the concerns of everybody, but I'm not sure there's a perfect answer here.
Guadalupe, one of the allowable uses you suggested, alternative uses was a truck storage lot or something like a U-Haul lot, if I understood correctly as well.
One of the permitted uses under the Business Park 1 is
Rental use facilities.
equipment rental.
There you go. Okay. So it could be something like that.
And Katie, I believe, do you have
Yeah,
something to add?
Chairman, if I may, I was able to just look up the height permitted, and it's permitted to go up to 40 feet in height.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Back to the hazardous materials, and Guadalupe, this isn't you, but this is for the applicant. Are there like random, not searches, but inspections of this rental units to ensure that nothing hazardous is in there?
I don't know if they heard you. I don't see how they can do that. I mean, that applies to every single.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, could you restate your question?
Yeah,
Commissioner?
Would there be random inspections of the rental units to make sure nothing hazardous is going to be in there?
So through the rental agreement, we're not allowed to randomly inspect people's storage units. It's a violation of their privacy. But the on-site manager, there is an on-site manager every day. They do walk the property multiple times, both inside and out. And again, there's security cameras, no blind spots anywhere on the property. So if anything does look suspicious, then they can notify that tenant and say, hey, we would like to request to search your unit, but they cannot do it without their permission.
And they could be turned down, say, no, that's mine, and no.
Yeah, but if there's somebody complaining or something, that could be further investigated. So, could I clarify the height on the building for a second?
Mm-hmm.
So the parapet, the roof line's actually at 12 feet. The parapet around the building is at 17. And then we do have certain areas where that roof line varies from really the 17 to the 20-foot mark. There's only one spot on the property that's at 26, and it is the loading tower that fronts the parking lot on Willis Road. So it's the point of the tower at 26.
Okay, any other discussion?
I have one more question for Guadalupe, just a point of clarification. There was one of the speakers mentioned that the residents within the 500 feet in Cantamia did not receive. Can you please confirm that that was received? That's the way the report is written.
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Zambito, Vice Chairman, Commissioners. The notices were sent as required to property owners within 500 feet of the property and the HOAs, both Cantamia and Segovia. At the moment, the Cantamia lots closer to Willis Road have been platted, but they have not been constructed. Thus, there are no additional property owners
So that's the undeveloped part of it?
Yes, it is the
Okay.
undeveloped part.
Okay. But the HOA did receive it?
That is correct. Notices were sent to the HOAs as well.
Okay, thank you.
Are they within 500 feet? Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. All right, have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion passes.
And this will go to the city council on July 10th, is that right? Is that the date? Yes. Okay, agenda item number 3 is a use permit for McDonald's. I'm going to open the public hearing. Planning Manager Steve Caracia is going to give us a rundown, please.
Good evening, Chairman, Commission members. Vice Chairman, I get to come back to you with the McDonald's, so
Okay.
it's a long time. I am presenting for Christian Williams.
Yes,
so-
I noticed his name there.
Yeah, so please excuse me, I will probably not do as good a job as Christian, but I will try my best with this presentation here. So it is a use permit for convenience use. It's proposed within Pueblo Verde community. And where we are located here is, this is Wider Goodyear, I-10, Saraville, and Yuma. So this is Pueblo Verde, Glenmont Estates right here. We're that little star right there at the corner, the southeast corner here of Yuma and Saraville. About 1.2 acres. We'll go a little bit more into more specifics here later, but it was zoned as part of the Pueblo Verde neighborhood. It's zoned neighborhood commercial. And here we're zooming in a little bit. Here's the property here. Part of a larger commercial center. This is about maybe 3 acres total, about 6.5 overall. And this is that storage facility that was approved a little while ago that is under construction now. Surrounding it, we have Wildflower to the north, Yuma Road here, Glenmont Estates kind of wraps around it. Here's Fire Station 184 right here. To the west, we go across Saraville. We have large lot residential here in Vanderbilt Farms. Then here to the northwest, we have Saraville Marketplace and Fry's here that anchors it. And just looking a little bit of the history of this site, again, all of this was rezoned in 2004. With this, the commercial piece zoned C1 neighborhood commercial. Residential developed first, and that is all existing around the site. This site is now starting to develop again with the mini storage now under development. And here we are looking at a little closer at the proposal. It is a restaurant with drive-through, specifically it's McDonald's. Building's about 4,500 square feet. They have about 45 parking spaces for that use, which will meet our zoning ordinance criteria. It is a drive-through restaurant, and again, I should point out that that is what triggers the use permit, not the restaurant, but the drive-through portion of this use. And here they're showing a double order lane, menu boards here. They'll wrap around the east side of the building, 3 pickup and pay windows here. Customers will then exit here, go east or west to leave the site. Architecture for the site, consistent with the existing or the proposed storage developing here to the east. The materials, the stone, the stucco, all consistent with what's developing there. Also with this site, they did provide pedestrian access to Yuma and Saraville, and also with an enhanced corner treatment here, this trellis structure here, and the post and rail fencing that continues the theme that was established with Glenmont Estates and also with Vanderbilt Farms across the street. And with this drawing, I wanted to point out north is to the right. This kind of just zooms in again to the site. Elevations for the site, existing neighborhood was about 71 feet. That pretty much follows as you go across the site. Top of curb's about 72 feet. Initial grade right now, the rough grade's about 69 feet, so with the pad going up, probably a little bit higher then. But between the neighborhood here to the south, as you're heading north, the grades are pretty consistent across the site. Access to this proposed site will utilize the drive going in for the storage here. This is the entrance off of Saraville. So this will be a right in, right out eventually when the median goes in. Here off of Yuma, there's a 3/4 access, a right in, right out, and a left in. So that'll provide the 2 points of access and circulation for this user. And just looking in again at the site, if approved, what it would develop as, this is the landscaping proposed around the site. With the storage facility, there's a 30-foot landscape buffer here and retention that'll be planted with trees and shrubs. There will also be a 6-foot view wall here, so there'll be solid wall here with the back of the building, and then view wall will continue west towards Saraville. There'll also be, and this is a picture that Christian placed in here, of what the back of the storage units will look like here. And then also wanted to point out that with this, the view here from the south, the applicant is proposing a sound wall here, 6-foot sound wall to reduce noise trespass from the menu and speakers. And then this is the building behind the sound wall. So this would be the view if you're looking up here from that retention area. Looking north, you would see this sound wall and then the building behind. Neighborhood meeting was held in January. There were about at least 30 people from the surrounding neighborhoods, Wildflower and Glenmont Estates, that did attend. Majority of those attendees were in opposition to the proposal. Some of the issues that were raised include increased traffic, noise, light pollution, crime. To address some of those, the applicant and staff did work on several stipulations. You'll see those here, and as you saw in the staff report, different mitigation measures that are being proposed. And then for a use permit, the applicant needs to demonstrate that it's not going to be adversely affect any of the surrounding areas, that it will be compatible with other uses in the area. In looking at the request and the stipulations that are included with that request, staff does find that the request would meet the approval criteria for a use permit. And as such, we are recommending approval of the request subject to those stipulations in the staff report. Mr. Vice Chair, that concludes my presentation. Staff's available for questions. The applicant also has a presentation that they would like to present, or I believe they would like to present.
Okay, any questions for staff? Now, we're doing this because of the drive-through, that's for the use, had it not been a drive-through, we wouldn't be talking about this, is that right?
That is correct, yes, sir. It is the drive-through component that triggers the convenience use and use permit.
I got a question, Steve. I've driven by a few times the past few days, and there's construction on the south side of it, and I assume that's for the storage units that are going in, and that's that south entry street. I saw walls going up and stuff. Is that the construction I'm seeing as I go by the property?
Yes, sir. That storage facility is under construction, and the storage facility was putting in that drive right here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no questions. We'll have the applicant would like to make a presentation.
Good evening, Vice Chairman and members of the Commission. My name is Paul Gilbert. My address is 701 North 44th Street in Phoenix. I represent both McDonald's and the proposed developer who is here, Darian Mellon. He will be speaking to you later. And also the property owner who is also here. So we got everybody. Also with me is my planner, Andy Jokums, and he'll be assisting me with the presentation. Vice Chairman, you hit it on the head. The only reason we're here is not because we're putting a restaurant in, that's allowed as a matter of right, but a drive-through, and that requires a use permit. So we're here to demonstrate to you that the use permit is compatible with and is worthy of your recommendation of approval to the City Council. I want to point out just very quickly that this has been zoned C1 since November of 2004, so there's no surprises that a possibility of a drive-through restaurant could be located on this property, which is consistent with the C1 zoning. The ordinance also defines in a very interesting way how this district should be used, and it says, and I quote, as a transition buffer between uses of varying intensity or to add separation distance between arterial streets and residential districts. That, I submit, is perfectly descriptive of what this use that we're proposing today encourages. Also, we want to point out that the self-storage facility is almost completed, and it serves as an additional buffer in an important way to the residents in the area. The use permit process says we have an obligation to meet two criteria. One is the general criteria, and then two is the specific criteria. They are detailed in glorious detail in the staff presentation. As fond as I am of going through that with you, I will not bore you with that. But let me summarize very quickly to say the staff took every single detail that's required in the general and specific and pointed out how we meet every single one of those criteria. I do want to talk about a couple of the criteria, however, under the specific category. It was brought up at the neighborhood meeting. Some were concerned about the size. We're 1.28 acres, I believe. And the staff addressed that very, I think, forcefully and fairly eloquently when it said, and I quote, "The 1.2 acre parcel is sufficient size and configuration to accommodate the proposed restaurant and drive-through." It's one of the findings that need to be made under the specific criteria. Additionally, and this is again a quote from your planning staff, "Queuing space for the drive-through meets the city's new standards and pursuant to the traffic study can be accommodated on-site, importantly, quote, without adversely impacting any public street or adjacent land uses." It's important as we reason together, too, that you be aware, because one of the concerns that the neighbors brought up was that there was too much traffic already at this intersection. Well, we were required by the city to do a complete traffic study, which we did. That traffic study was submitted, reviewed, and approved by your planning staff. The conclusions of that study, again as approved by your staff, are: 1, access to the site from both Yuma and Saraville Avenue, both arterial roadways, will be entirely within the, both arterial roadways, a lot of pressure up here tonight, sorry, and circulation for this use and the other commercial uses on the property will be entirely, and I want to emphasize this, entirely within the commercial center with no immediate impacts on the surrounding neighborhood. A traffic study also indicated that all intersections are continued to operate at an adequate level of service, with the proposed uses and the traffic study for the site again being approved by your engineering department. Also, we want to point out that our request that is before you this evening was submitted prior to the new drive-through standards. We don't have to comply with those standards. We are willingly and frankly enthusiastically complying. I, along with several others, actually spent time with your staff developing those standards. We felt comfortable with them, and even though we predate them, we are abiding by them. And that is also mentioned in your staff report. Don't want to forget the pedestrians. We've talked a lot about the traffic. Just very quickly want to add that obviously most patrons will be using the drive-through. That's the trend now. But we didn't forget the pedestrians, so we will provide landscaping on the adjacent to the existing sidewalk along both Saraville and Yuma, as this graphic makes very clear. And we are also adding 2 white rail fences at the intersection of the corner. The immediate intersection corner, we spent a lot of time doing this. This is a unique situation for a McDonald's restaurant, but we point out to you that we are providing a brick patio with seating and a trellis for shade. So our patrons can come, sit down, be shaded, and have a nice area and environment to enjoy their food. Let's talk about neighborhood considerations, and with that, I'll wrap it up. We did have some opposition at the neighborhood meeting, and so We spend a lot of time, and I am not exaggerating when I say we spend considerable amount of time working and coordinating with your planning staff in order to mitigate these neighborhood concerns. There are many, and I won't bore you with going through all of them, but let me at least mention a couple that I think are significant and vindicate that we really have gone the extra mile to protect the neighborhood and to ensure that this facility will not have an adverse impact. First of all, speaker noise. That's a common lament with drive-thrus. McDonald's operates the quietest and most efficient drive-thrus around, and this store will be no exception. Our equipment has what is known as an automatic volume control that reduces the speaker decibels based on ambient conditions, which produce a significant reduction compared to a standard speaker system. We also implement display screens at the order points. These screens are used to depict the order and allows a McDonald's employee to simply ask, does this accurately reflect your order? Some of you are nodding your heads. Thank you for your patronage. Normally, you hear when you have this type of a speaker system, all right, you ordered 2 cheeseburgers, a Big Mac, French fries, and so on. We don't have to do that. We very quietly just said, put the order up and ask the simple question, does this describe your order? Our speakers are located over 150 feet from our neighbors to the south. And while we do not anticipate that our speakers will be heard above ambient conditions, we will be adding a block wall. Steve indicated where that was. Thank you, right there. We'll be adding at the request of the staff, but also we were very willing to consider doing this. So we're putting in an additional block wall to screen the noise for the neighbors to the south. Recommended stipulation 8 confirms that we'll be providing a decorative wall, and stipulation 7 reminds us all of the language within the zoning ordinance. This is important, that the noise from the speakers cannot be audible within the residential property. It's a pretty strong commitment. We're agreeing
That's
to it.
10 minutes.
And again, this demonstrates that the speaker noise will not have an adverse effect on the adjacent neighborhood. Doesn't stop there. Odor was brought up at the neighborhood meeting. Frankly, that caught us a little bit by surprise. As someone that's represented McDonald's on a lot of cases, I've never been accused of providing an odor problem, but we were. So, while we've never heard of a problem with odor problem with one of our restaurants, we have agreed to a stipulation that we have to submit to the city an odor mitigation plan along with an exhaust scrubbing device. This odor mitigation is detailed in stipulation 3 if you choose to review it. Real quickly on the lighting heights, locations, and level will be such that the illumination from the commercial use does not impose on the adjacent residential neighborhood. Internally illuminated signage is not to be placed on the south side of the building facing the residential.
Okay.
No.
Okay, I think your time's up. I'm sorry.
All right. All right, let me wrap it up just real quickly then. Sorry, I'm paid by the word. So
I understand.
All right. Well, in conclusion, we're only here because we need a use permit. We think we have gone the extra mile to satisfy all the concerns that the neighbors raised. We've worked closely with your staff, and I would like to just read one last sentence from the staff report in conclusion, which in my mind very aptly summarizes what we are trying to say here, and that is, staff finds that the proposed use permit for a convenience use, McDonald's drive-through, subject to the conditions and stipulations set forth above, meets the zoning ordinance requirements for convenience uses, will not be material detrimental to adjacent properties, and will be compatible with the surrounding area. Staff is recommending approval of the use permit. We hope you will as well.
Thank you. Applicant, would you like to make a presentation?
No, that was it.
I mean, I thought
Yeah.
I thought it was the owner who wanted to say something.
No, the owner is here, and I'm sure
Oh,
he'll
well,
be.
then I don't have to hear from the owner if he
Oh,
doesn't want to
I
speak.
think he'd be very
I have a speaker card
willing
for
to speak.
the owner.
Okay.
So, you want him to come forward now, Vice Chairman, or just want to?
No, that's
come in
fine.
order?
That's fine. All right.
Okay, fine.
Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? Okay, are there any speaker cards?
I do. For Ray and Corey Cohen.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Corey Cowan. It's my husband, Ray. He's handing it out back there, I guess. We own Lot 5 in Glenmont Estates, which is the closest property to the proposed McDonald's and drive-through. The special permit is needed for this because it's so close to our house. And we just wanted to come tonight to share that we hope you vote against this project because we feel like it will be detrimental to our lifestyle and our home. Some of the things shared tonight sound a little different than what's been shared in the past with us. We've been working very closely with some of these gentlemen for many, many years prior to the storage unit coming in. And we appreciate them working with us and taking some of our thoughts into consideration. We have always been under the understanding that the road behind our wall is an exit only for the storage unit. So now to have traffic going two ways, just past a 30-foot buffer from our backyard is concerning. People might get crazy if they're driving or something, risk of them coming through our block wall. It was mentioned tonight a different wall being put in as a buffer. We've not heard anything about that plan yet. Sorry, I'm nervous.
That's all right.
And we have shared all the same concerns that were addressed this evening, but some of the other concerns we have are outside of the control of McDonald's, right? So when we're in drive-throughs and we're getting food, we're hearing cars honking, we're hearing people yelling at each other, loud diesel vehicles, we're hearing people, as awesome as the plan sounds to get people in and out very quickly, we've all been in drive-throughs for 5, 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes at the McDonald's on Estrella. So lots of idling vehicles, congested traffic. We are right up the street from the high school, which has a lot of teenagers that are going to probably be visiting this. We have a lot of concerns about trash and litter around our properties, potential damage to our block wall and our property area. We have concerns about the pergola, or what you might call it, the intersection there. We've seen an increase in transient homeless population in our city and worry that that might be a draw for them to come. And just in general, don't feel like this is going to help. We've spent tens of thousands, not millions like our friends in Estrella, but tens of thousands of dollars on our backyard as a place where we like to host our friends and family, our children, and to be sitting in the backyard with the McDonald's sign that we all saw in the presentation, listening to those vehicles and orders is not something that's going to be good. It's going to be detrimental to our lifestyle. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other speaker cards?
Yes. Darian Mellon.
Thank you for being here, Commissioners. I'm Darian Mellon, and I know I'm not supposed to address the residents, but I'll be the franchisee. And I just wanted to represent myself to the commission today and to the community so that when all this is done, given the opportunity to operate this restaurant, I don't go away. And my family's been here since 1980. I grew up here. I went to Alva Freya High School. I coached at numerous high schools around the valley. I actually live right down the street. I walked here today, and I'll be walking home. work out at Lifetime Fitness. If you want to talk to me, come there at 8 o'clock every morning. You can see me. Office right down the street. I employ 600 people in the city of Goodyear. My family's always owned and operated every McDonald's restaurant in this community. So it's not just a restaurant to me. This is important to me, you know. It's important that when they talk about trash, that doesn't happen, that my staff maintains that every day, you know. I have 17 full-time maintenance staff throughout my 8 restaurants that I have today. That number will increase. I'm sure that, you know, high school across the street, I'll be the first people that they choose for employment, because that's my responsibility, is to be the best employer in town. When it comes to what we do in the community, we're one of the top fundraisers for all the schools. Over the last decade, we've raised over $200,000 for local education. I have a reading program in every single elementary school inside of Goodyear. You know, we're one of the top sponsors for the YMCA. The reason why the YMCA pool still exists and the city of Goodyear uses it for races and events is because we sponsor it monthly. We help maintain that facility so that kids can, you know, have a place to go. So I can go on, but it's not about McDonald's for me. It's truly about the community and the city of Goodyear. If you've had a chance to interact with my father, my mom, you know, or anybody in my family, you'll know that what we do is we sell cheeseburgers, but we help build the foundation of this community. And the reason why McDonald's chooses the locations we operate in, but the reason why they chose this location is because we need more services in Goodyear. We need more schools. We need more, you know, gas stations. We need more hospitals. We need everything. And the restaurant down on Estrella is too busy. And this is the way that we can provide a better service to our customers. And we're going to do everything possible to make sure that we're the best neighbors. And I'll work with all the residents daily from the moment we open. And, you know, like I said, 40 years from now, if it's my son or my daughter running that restaurant, we'll continue to do that. So I just want everybody to know it's not McDonald's. It's the Mellon family, it's Darian, and I'm here to do whatever I can do to be the best neighbor that we can be. So, thank you.
Bonita Hessla.
Hello, my name is Bonita Hessla, and I'm the secretary of the HOA for Glenmont Estates. And our community is very much against having this restaurant so close to our community, to the residents. We're not against McDonald's. It's a wonderful organization, but to have it situated where they want to situate it, we're very concerned about traffic. We're concerned about the noise. And once this facility goes in, there's very little recourse that you have when something goes wrong. Or he said that they did a traffic study, which is a wonderful thing, but if in 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, the traffic accidents have increased, then are they going to take responsibility for that? So it's more about that this is not a good location for McDonald's, and that's our concern. Thank you for your time.
Alan Stark.
Curiosity, before I start, can I do any visuals up here? I have some papers I would like to show. Appreciate it. See you. Good evening. My name is Alan Stark, and I've been a resident of Goodyear since 2009. Let's be very clear what the applicant is asking you to make a recommendation of approval on tonight. They're asking you to recommend approval of the highest traffic generating use allowed in a neighborhood commercial zoning district. and of course, the noise, the pollution, and the litter that comes with it. And in addition to that, they are asking that you place it a mere 150 feet from the backyards and master bedrooms of my neighbors. Despite this close proximity, they're asking you to recommend approval of it with the speaker box facing the homes, and for it to be open from 5 a.m. to midnight, creating only a 5-hour window where their operations will not be impacting the neighborhood homes. And despite the over 3,500 vehicles this will generate a day, as you saw on that last piece of paper, they are placing it in a commercial lot that will have no left turn exits. And one of the two main entrances, which you can see right here, is only 30 feet from the homes. 3,500 cars traveling 30 feet from my neighbor's backyard. Let me state this a different way. They're asking you to recommend approval of the closest drive-through to existing single-family housing to ever be approved in all of Goodyear. Now, you're probably thinking that's not true. What about the Whataburger on Indian School? That's closer, it's 70 feet. But there are some key differences. First, that was built over 2 decades ago. I'm sure we've learned to do things a bit better than that. Second, the speaker box at Whataburger faces Indian School, not the homes. But most importantly, that Whataburger was built before the homes. This McDonald's is being built 10 years after our homes got put in. You might also be drawing parallels to McDonald's that was recently approved on Indian School, but that McDonald's was 380 feet away. This one's 150 feet. Significant difference there. That speaker box faced away from the homes. This one faces towards it. And that did provide a transition from the warehouses to the west. This is not around warehouses. It's surrounded on all 4 sides by low-density, single-family housing. This McDonald's does not fill any need for the surrounding community. Within a 1.5-mile radius of the development, there are 25 existing, under construction, or approved drive-through fast food restaurants. I contrast that with there only being 4 full-service sit-down restaurants. And it's worth mentioning that none of those 25 other drive-throughs found it necessary to build within 150 feet of single-family homes. The Goodyear zoning ordinance, which defines neighborhood commercial, which my friend Paul provided, but conveniently left out the first sentence, says that neighborhood commercial uses are intended to provide limited retailing, serving nearby residential neighborhoods. A drive-through bringing in 3,500 cars a day is not limited. Placing such a high-intensity use so close to single-family homes, closer than has ever been approved before in the city of Goodyear, does not meet the standards for quality development that makes Goodyear such a great place to live. And it will clearly be materially detrimental to my neighbors. Thank you for the time.
I have no more speaker cards.
Anyone else want to speak? I'm going to close the public hearing. I'd like to have a motion and a second. Okay, do we have any discussion among the commissioners? Any further questions?
I guess I do have, like, I know it was mentioned, we looked at a McDonald's most recently at Indian School in Sorrow Hall. And I remember discussion on that one having to do with the odor issue. I'm not sure if it's the same owner, but since he said he owns all the McDonald's, he may be.
Same guy.
I recall specifically that they actually were implementing a special particular type of odor equipment from Europe, and kind of was curious if it's the same thing here. I also shared the same concern with the last resident. This is even closer. And since it is a neighborhood commercial, it's like, well, how many people do you expect to draw here? You don't have any significant anchors. It's not like down there by Ace Hardware where the other one is, and there's all that stuff going on. And even the most recent approval that we just did, they have the UPS facility with all the people going to work and coming home, all these additional people coming in, and a 6-lane arterial Indian School next to it. It's a much smaller area here. it's a little harder for me to look at it in the same light. It seems like an odd location for it to me.
I'll actually agree, and also just to go to piggyback on that, we know that these kind of restaurants, transients gravitate towards those places. And living in Goodyear for 18 years, one of the selling points is safety, it's beauty. So I share those same worries when it comes to what you just stated, but also just I wonder if there's going to be any kind of measures in place to ensure that homelessness and transient population stays out of that area.
Anything further? Cast your votes.
Motion passes.
Again, this will come before the council on July the 10th. Is that right still? Same date? Okay, item number 4 on the agenda. I'm going to open the public hearing. It's for a QT restaurant. Guadalupe is back with us.
And Vice Chairman, I just want to mention that the McDonald's use permit will be heard at the June 26th City Council public hearing.
Oh, June 26th, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Didn't know. That's going to be the same one as the Circle K, huh? Or has that been changed?
No, you
want-
are correct.
Yeah.
On June 26th, City Council will also heard the Circle K use permit.
Okay.
Thank you, Vice Chairman, Commission members, Guadalupe Ortiz Cortez. The request before you is for a use permit for a convenience use for a Quick Trip. The subject property is located at the northeast corner of Yuma Road and 173rd Avenue. The property is shown on the screen by the orange outline. The property is on PAD, Planned Area Development. The PAD is known as Canyon Trails Phase 2. The zoning for the property was approved in 1999. The property has an underlying C2 general commercial under the PAD. The property is located on the map outlined here in yellow. It is north of Cotton Flower Marketplace and Cotton Flower neighborhood, south of Crestwood at Canyon Trails neighborhood, and west of the South Cotton Lane and Future Loop 303 expansion. The site is approximately 3 acres in size. The city approved a master site plan for the entire corner of Yuma and South Cotton Lane, the northwest corner, in 2007. The master site plan since then has expired. This is an aerial view of the proposed Quick Trip on the corner of Yuma Road and 173rd Avenue. And it also shows the approximate distances between the Quick Trip and the residential neighborhoods to the north and south. Those distances being approximately 100 feet from Cotton Flower neighborhood to the property line of the Quick Trip, and approximately 400 feet from the property line of Quick Trip to the property line nearest the Crestwood at Canyon Trails residential neighborhood. The area also shows the entrances to the proposed Quick Trip. That is a right-in, right-out access from Yuma Road, right-in, right-out access on the first drive on 173rd Avenue, and then a full access drive north of that and on 173rd Avenue. The applicant proposes a 5,312 square foot convenience store and an 8,153 square foot fuel canopy with a capacity to serve up to 20 vehicles. The applicant is provided the required vehicle parking spaces and required landscape as well. The proposed elevations include a variety of materials. The elevations are similar to the QT that opened last week at the southwest corner of Bullard and McDowell roads. The proposed fueling canopy elevations match the proposed elevations for the convenience store. The application for the use permit meets the use permit and convenience use evaluation criteria established in the zoning ordinance and detailed in the staff report. Staff believes that the Quick Trip use permit is compatible with the uses permitted in the surrounding area. The nearest residential is approximately 100 feet to the south, with Yuma Road within that distance. And also, as previously mentioned, there is a residential neighborhood to the north, approximately 400 feet to the north, with other expected commercial uses to go within that distance. The city has not received proposals for other commercial uses within that commercial center at this time. The Quick Trip proposes 24-hour operations. Given the future commercial uses and road separations between the Crestwood at Canyon Trails and Cotton Flower neighborhoods, respectively, it anticipates that the operation of the convenience use, including the proposed 24-hour operations, will not be detrimental to the residential development. A traffic study was submitted and reviewed with the use permit application. The applicant is working with city staff and ADOT as the plans for the Loop 303 progress. ADOT expects that the construction for the Loop 303 will begin in fiscal year 2025, with construction being completed in fiscal year 2028. The citizen review and public hearing processes were followed. Notices were mailed to surrounding property owners that is within 500 feet of the subject property. A sign was posted on the property and legal advertisements were published in the newspaper. A neighborhood meeting was held on April 19th. One resident attended the meeting. The resident expressed concerns with noise, smells, and potential crime arising from the proposed use, as well as expressed frustration with the seller of the home not disclosing the zoning south of the resident's property. Staff also received an email in support of the project. A resident expressed excitement about the Quick Trip possibly going on that property. The use permit request meets the city requirements. Staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission forwards a recommendation of approval to the City Council, subject to the stipulations found in the staff report. Mr. Vice Chairman, Commission members, this concludes my presentation. The applicant is in attendance, and we can both answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for staff? Does the applicant want to make a presentation, or want to show us your face? There you go.
Yes, thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Daniel Chambers. I work for Quick Trip Corporation. I'm the project manager for this project, and I office out of 1116 East Broadway Road in Tempe, Arizona. I want to thank city staff. Guadalupe, thank you for all your work in preparing this. I think she did a great job of outlining in the staff report how we meet the criteria and for the special use permit, the different things we had to do. As she indicated, we did have a neighborhood meeting. Ms. Blush is here. I'm sure she will speak too. I know that we did not see eye to eye on every issue, but I did enjoy getting to know you and spending, I think, about 2 hours together. So we had a good time just going through and talking about development in general and stuff. So if you guys have any specific questions or if Ms. Blush would like me to address anything, I'm here for it. So we're very excited to potentially open up another facility in the community and look forward to working with you guys if you guys allow us to move forward. Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? Speaker cards?
Only one for Lori Blush.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. As he mentioned, we did have a long conversation. I was the only person that showed up in my community. My home is right behind where this Quick Trip is going to go. And I did some investigation. There is 5% of the national violent crime that comes from convenience stores. I built this home 3 years ago, and it was supposed to be my forever home. Do you think I'm going to feel safe with that behind my home? That's just my opinion. But then 173rd, this is all residential. There's no businesses. It's all residential. And we didn't even get notified because we were supposedly 500 feet away from it. And because I went to the meeting, I got the postcard to come to this meeting. And, you know, my concern is I've lived there now for 3 years since my home was built. And we have a lot of children. We have a lot of people that like to walk their dogs, play in the playground across from our community. 173rd goes all the way from Yuma all the way to Van Buren. And it's residential. It's 25 miles an hour. Now, if you put a Quick Trip right on that corner and you bring in all these people racing in and out of there, our residential street is going to end up as an access road. How safe is that going to be for our community? You know, I came to Goodyear because I thought you guys had good values, and so far they had. But when I seen this, I just didn't know what to do with myself. Now here I have my forever home, and I'm going to be afraid to live there. And I would just ask you, would you want one behind your home? Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
I've not received any other speaker cards.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. I have a motion and a second. Have any discussion among commissioners? Any further questions? Make your vote.
Motion passes.
Okay, staff communications.
Thank you. At the May meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission considered a U-Haul storage facility, and that was approved by council last month. Also, you may be interested, the Circle K case that is adjacent to Pebble Creek on Indian School Road is still ongoing. There's a neighborhood meeting scheduled for June 22nd, and it's tentatively scheduled, or no, notices have been sent out for the June 26th council meeting. So that one has not yet been acted upon by council. Also, I wanted to give you an update. The commissioner seat is still open. The subcommittee that reviews applications, that's made up of 3 council members, reviewed applications. And looking at the minutes from that meeting, the subcommittee determined that adequate geographical representation had not been met, and they directed the city clerk to conduct directed recruitment in the Palm Valley and West Goodyear neighborhoods. So if you know anybody who may be interested in the Palm Valley and West Goodyear neighborhoods, please encourage them to apply. And that's all the communications I had. Thank you.
Christopher's running up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commission. Just also wanted to give you a brief heads up about a couple of things that we're working on in addition to the general plan that Steve and Guadalupe and others and Katie's working on. We also have the design guidelines going on, which I know that you've been, I think you've been a part of, or will be, I know you will be a part of. But in addition to that, we have a couple of, or several council-directed zoning ordinance text amendments that are going to be cascading through the commission this fall. related to use permits in churches, the creation of a business park district. Two others.
Noise standards adjacent to freeways.
Yes. There's one other that's eluding me. But anyway, I just wanted to give you a heads up that we do have a couple of things that we are working on as far as some tweaks to the zoning ordinance that are very narrowly construed to certain particular components of the ordinance. And I think you've heard us say before that the zoning ordinance in Goodyear hasn't been comprehensively rewritten since 1999 or 2000. So it's quite a long time. And so after our general plan is completed, we're going to be rolling over into a comprehensive look of that document as well. Because I'm sure, you know, just like anything that changes over time, there's probably some inconsistencies and some things like that and some cleanup that needs to be done just comprehensively. So we'll be doing that as well. And I just wanted to give you a heads up that you'll be starting to see these things cascading through. The first ones, we're anticipating the noise revisions. We're anticipating coming to Planning Commission and Council in September or October. The rest of those will cascade through the fall, through early winter, January, February at the latest. So just want to give you a heads up. And I still can't remember what the other one is.
Mobile.
Mobile. Thank you, Alyssa. Yes, council gave us some direction in regards to the community of Mobile, which is in far southern Goodyear, down by the city of Maricopa, actually, about creating some rural development standards for the residents that live down there.
Yeah, we've already talked about them just recently because we let them have a skydiving class down there.
Yes, that's correct. There was that, yeah, at the airport there. Thank you, Alyssa. I appreciate that.
Okay, the next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting will be June 28th in these chambers at 6 p.m. No further business. The meeting's adjourned.